Hello and welcome to Destination Digest, the podcast from Destination North East England, England's first destination development partnership. And once again, if I had a pound for every time I say the word destination on this show, this episode I would have at least £3 by now. Each episode is focusing on a different area of our work here at Destination North East England, whether that's supporting businesses to make their products more bookable, whether that's going out to the world as part of the international amplification work, or today talking about our work in regenerative tourism, which is all about leaving a positive impact on our place, people and planet. Now, we've heard the words sustainable loads, ethical, net zero, lots of phrases that are bandied around in this space. But regenerative is a bit of a new concept for the industry. There's not a lot of places focusing on regenerative work to make sure that we're leaving a positive impact as opposed to just maintaining or sustaining the impact that we have on the area at the moment. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Chief Executive and Chief Changemaker at Global Destination Sustainability Movement, Guy Bigwood. Hello, Guy.
Hello, Johnny. Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here.
It's fantastic to have you on. You were just telling me that you've had a lovely morning with some Barcelona sunshine, which is always nice to hear. And you've been working with us now for quite a while, really, within North East England on a really exciting piece of work. So first of all, if you could just explain a little bit more about who you are and who GDS Movement are and how you have been involved with Destination North East England.
Sure, with pleasure. So I'm what my team calls the Chief Changemaker at the GDS Movement, the Global Destination Sustainability Movement. And we work with about 120 destinations all around the world. And our goal is to try and shift the way the visitor economy works now from a degenerative to a sustainable to a regenerative way of working, and to try and readdress some of the imbalance in tourism that we have around the world. So that's what we do. And we do that from Europe to South America, Asia, North America, all around the world.
Fantastic. And we've said the word regenerative now a number of times, and apart from being a rather challenging word to say multiple times over and over again, could you explain a little bit more about what we mean by that? We've heard the word sustainable, we've heard the word ethical and net zero, and you know all of these phrases that are often bandied around in this space. But what do we mean by a regenerative visitor economy and a regenerative destination?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to think kind of what we're trying to do is kind of three steps. Is that some of the way we work today is degenerative. We make negative impacts, right? Whether environmental or social impacts. I live in Barcelona, right? There's the huge influx of tourism we have makes some negative impacts on some of the people that live here, environmentally, waste, noise, things like that. So that's a degenerative approach. So we've been trying on places all around the world to make that shift from a degenerative to a sustainable approach. And that's good. We're trying to sustain, okay? But often sustaining is really about just reducing impacts, okay? So it's a risk management strategy, you could say, in some ways. We're trying to lower or lessen impact. And that's good. That's super important. We need to do that. But ultimately, we have to look at the model, flip the model, and rethink the way we're thinking so that tourism is regenerating. It's giving back or improving or healing or restoring or recovering communities, economies, and the environment that hosts tourism and, where we live. So, the correct way of saying it probably would be a regenerative approach to tourism. That's what we're trying to get to. So that we think, how does tourism add value to our place and its people? So that's what it's really about.
And you mentioned there, you live in a destination that widely reported has seen this impact of what we're dubbing as over tourism and the negative impact the industry and the sector has had on a place. So why is it important that somewhere like North East England, with ambitions to double the size and the value of the visitor economy, why is it important that we strive for this regenerative approach?
You can see it somewhere like Barcelona, but years back, 30 years back, tourism wasn't so big. And the city has done an amazing job, and its business has done an amazing job at attracting tourism. And that's created an amazing amount of benefit to the city economically. But others have started to lose out in that process. What we've got to make sure is, with these very aggressive targets of Destination Northeast to double the visitor economy, how do we decouple the carbon footprint? Because in theory, if we double tourism, we have double the amount of carbon emissions coming. Is there a way where we can double tourism without having double the amount of carbon emissions? Is there a way, eventually we could actually absorb more carbon than we actually emit through the visitors coming to our destination? If we look at socially, it sounds great because there's many places now that don't have a lot of tourists. But I know in some parts of Northumberland coastline, they're already getting parts in August and July where those seaside towns are already starting to feel the pressure of too many tourists. So how do we design it so that the tourists and our visitors and our locals are going to places that aren't saturated? How do we keep the controls there? How do we do this so that all businesses and all parts of the community can win? So it's inclusive, this growth, or the benefits of this growth are inclusive, I should say. So those are just a few of the points.
And I think, we'll discuss exactly, what the framework is and how it works in just a moment. But one of the key principles that's come out of the work to create this framework is this idea of the destination stewardship principle, and this idea that we will make sure that our approach is regenerative first and foremost, and we will almost prioritize that over economic gain to make sure that we have environmental, social and community gain first and foremost. Could you just explain a little bit more about that and how that came about?
Normally, as in most places around the world, economic interests always take precedence. And we thought that that's not really regenerative. That has a tendency, it could be a degenerative in its results that could come out of that. So we were looking to think, as part of the visitor, as part of this task force that we built, and I'll explain that a little bit more, the task force said there must be a different way to do it. And there's a principle in the way the national parks are managed in the UK. And so we borrowed from that principle and basically came up to this point now that said, if we ever get to a point where there is, what would you call it? There is a conflict between development of the visitor economy and environmental and community well-being, the well-being of the environment and the community should take precedence over purely economical considerations. This is big. This is big. This is not a law, or not yet, but it's a guiding principle. And we want to try and get this embedded into bylaws and guidelines and strategies and principles adopted by destinations and businesses all across the Northeast. So we can kind of make sure we have some controls and principles to guide balanced growth.
And it's really interesting there. You said this is big, and it really is. I mentioned in my intro that this is world leading. This is what we've put out there in the press releases. We're really proud of it. And you yourself were, I was speaking to you at the launch of the framework, and you said, this is the project that you're really, really excited about happening, right around the world. And it's happening here in the Northeast. So what makes it so groundbreaking and what makes it so exciting?
I think there's a few things. I think one, the process. Right? We had a really strong process involving hundreds of organizations and stakeholders across the Northeast. So we formed a task force. I think we had 32, 34 members of the community in that, and they each represented different organizations, and they were from the local authorities, they were from the cities, they were from NGOs, social environmental NGOs, they were from business, they were from representing the residents. We really spent a lot of time looking at stakeholders and making sure we had the right people in the task force. Then we started to develop some ideas. Then we went out to a bigger group of people, and we had a stakeholder forum. We had hundreds of people there, and we got their input. Then through the input of that group of people, they identified other people. So we went to other NGOs, other parts of the government, other parts of business, and we started getting all these ideas, and we started to create this framework. And I'll explain that framework in a little bit. But then we started to write it up, get the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee or the task force to help improve it. Then we went back to the stakeholders to validate it. So it was a year-long process. But not only did we come up with a framework that serves to guide destination development, we started to build up a common understanding, a common language, a common way of seeing this. And now I can see that those people who were involved in this process almost talk a different language. It's really quite noticeable. And that alignment is critical, because the alignment and the relationships that were created through that process will create other initiatives.
And I think, we saw that happening on the night when we launched the framework. We've seen it in the room when we've had these kind of task force meetings as well. That kind of shift in thinking, that alignment starting to happen in real time, which I think is quite rewarding to see, actually. You can kind of see people all starting to sing off the same hymn sheet in real time.
And that's right. That's a good phrase. I mean, that really is. So you kind of you've got the creation, you've got the alignment, which makes it kind of groundbreaking. But the three, it's already been used. It was only launched, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And we've already got the actual destination partnership using it for the development of their strategy. Got Northumberland using it. We've got Durham using it. With NGI using it for Newcastle. So this is pretty exciting. So we created something, and almost before we launched, it's being used and it's shaping. So this is what it's about. Right? And so the energy, I think, around that and all of those bits, for me, create it to be one of this most exciting projects that I'm definitely working on, and looking around the world at other regenerative tourism initiatives. I think this stands out. So I'm very excited.
Amazing. And, we've talked about the framework. We've danced around the fact that this thing now exists and it's out in the wild, and we're really proud of it and people are starting to use it. But could you just explain a little bit more about what is this framework? How is it going to be used, and what is the future for it going forward?
Okay. So it's important that at the moment, people understand that this framework is developed for destination management organizations. Okay, so DMOs in the Northeast region, there's LVEPs, there's 3 local visitor economy partnerships. We create it for the organizations, the authorities, and managing the visitor economy. Okay, so that's the first thing. The idea is that each of them has their own strategy. Every place needs a strategy grounded in its own locality and needs and challenges and opportunities. But we can have a framework and a set of principles and guidelines that can make sure all those destinations can move in the same direction towards the same North Star. And this is what the framework is. So through this collaboration work we did, the task force and all the stakeholders identified 5 key areas. And they said these 5 key areas are really important for the managing the growth of tourism. So one was about people. We need to invest in people. We need to make sure we're developing the skills in the Northeast. We're creating quality and fair jobs, inclusive jobs. We're creating proper career opportunities in the visitor economy, not just short-term summer jobs, but proper jobs and careers. We need to make sure that there's kind of accommodation, affordable accommodation for the workers, and that we're considering the health and well-being. So the framework lays out a series of guidelines under those 5 areas: invest in people. So that's one area. Then kind of connected to those, that is the businesses, the local businesses. How do we foster thriving, not just surviving, but thriving local businesses? So what can destinations do to catalyze innovation, education, product development, experience development, sustainable and local supply chains, and resilience to, seasonality, but also to climate change, which will go on. So that's a kind of a focus. So this strategy is not all about the DMO doing everything. It's about how do they catalyze? How do they bring people together? How do they connect people? How do they support entrepreneurship? So invest in people, local business. Third one is around decarbonising and adapting. Climate change will require us to mitigate and to adapt to the future. So we need some basic skills. Every business, every destination needs to be able to measure its carbon emissions and then set up a reduction plan. And that's, it's quite technical. How about optimizing resources? How about driving circular economy? Looking at low carbon inclusive travel? How we design new products and experiences? And how businesses just adapt to this change because, summer's going to change, winter's going to change. So that's the third point, decarbonise and adapting. The fourth one is really about some of the bits that make the Northeast really special: nature, landscapes, culture, and heritage. So how do we protect them? Protecting would just almost be a sustainable approach. If it's a regenerative approach, we're going to restore. How do we restore the Northeast, right? The forests, the beaches, the villages, the towns, the culture, all of that. So there's a whole kind of series of guidelines of how we could work towards that. And the last thing kind of brings it all together is about people and communities. How do we connect people and communities? How does the local authorities and business work together to create better transport options for local communities and people from traveling from afar? So we have people coming on trains, within the destination, more people on bikes and walking and using public transport. But it's also about digital connectivity as well, and inclusive digital connectivity. So just to repeat, we got invested people, fostering thriving local business, decarbonising, adapting, restoring nature, landscapes, culture and heritage, it's a lot of words, and connecting people and communities. So 5 key areas that are there. And that's holistic. That's a big thinking. And destinations in the past would never even thought of that. They'd be like, how do we mark a destination to get people to come here? And then that's it. So it's a big shift in thinking, big shift in really the role of the DMO.
And I think what's really interesting about it as well is that at every single stage in all of those principles and all of those pathways, people and community in place are at the heart of it. And it's one thing that came out of the co-creation process that I found is that it's that pride of being from the Northeast, and people are proud to be from here. And I think that's quite unique to the region. There is this kind of really proud identity to be from this part of the world. And that then spurs on that restorative approach and that regenerative approach, which I think is really key to the success of the framework being implemented.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to kind of married into a family in the northeast of England, and really got to know and spend time in Newcastle and up in the Northumberland, on the coast and the mountains and the hills and stuff, and it's wonderful. I mean, that's what's attracted me: the authenticity, the pride, and the friendliness, and so coming back to our goal is we want to protect that, we want to build that up and put that on a pedestal, and we don't want to lose that through too much growth. So that's really this intention. But now, we have a framework. Now we're going to implement it, right? Now we're going to get not just the destinations, but we've got to start to think of a phase 2 is how do we adapt these principles to work for businesses? How does a business take this idea? How can a business be regenerative, whether you're a hotel or or a venue or an activity provider? So that's kind of the next stage we're now going to.
And I think that's key. This podcast is geared around how do we support our businesses through Destination Northeast England and all the opportunities that are available for them, because businesses are coming to us and they've got challenges. They've got cost challenges that are spiraling out of control now. They've got staffing and skills shortages, for example. There's a whole raft of things that are pulling attention for those business owners and the people that are responsible for running them. So what does striving for a regenerative future mean for these businesses now, and what can they do to kind of get ahead of the curve and get ready for that next stage to ensure that they are making the time and the effort to get behind this work?
Yes, yeah, good questions. And I think there's 2 levels to this, right? And some of this is more longer term strategic. This is about systems change, and a real regenerative approach is about changing the system. So what needs to change in the system? What's the roles of the businesses to make sure they're vocal enough They're sharing their issues, their challenges, and co-creating solutions. So the kind of work that we've just done on the framework needs to happen on many other things, whether it's decarbonisation or inclusion, or as you said, skill development and efficiency. We need that kind of process. So that's a kind of a longer term systems thinking approach. So how do we get businesses in that? But then on the more practical day-to-day basis, what does this mean for a hotel? And I don't think regenerative tourism is new. There's businesses out there have been doing this for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years. Hotels that are really fantastic at supporting elements of their community. They support charities. They hire in and recruit maybe people with different types of challenges and give them jobs and make them feel part of the team and give them work and benefit from that as well. There is obviously hotels and businesses that put solar panels on the roof or investing in renewable energy. But can they go to the next step and they start to generate more than they actually use? So they're giving into the system, so helping the grid to come to the next stage of efficiency or impact. So there's many different areas. So what we need to do with this work is start to keep aligning these initiatives. So what Net Zero Northeast is doing is an amazing initiative around decarbonising the Northeast. But we need to make the connections with the visitor economy even tighter. So this framework is like aligning these initiatives. And the next phase is for destination management organizations and other actors to start to really look for those synergies. How do we work on these common goals that we've now lined forward? Well, where are those projects that small business can get involved in? Where's the funding that's going to come out that small business can apply for? Who's going to help the small businesses to apply for it? Because that's often one of the big challenges. So there's a series of things that we can do and we should be seeing happen in the next few months and years forward.
And I think, the key thing as well for any businesses that are listening and thinking, that this is all great and this is fantastic, but what does it actually mean for my bottom line? What does it mean for, the development of my business from an economical standpoint, for example? But we've seen in the kind of shift in consumer behavior as well. Searches for sustainable holidays are up 191% on Google since 2020. We've also seen that more and more consumers now are placing kind of sustainable considerations much higher in their kind of list of wants and needs when it comes to booking a trip away. So, there is definitely a shift to a more planet conscious, climate considerate and socially conscious consumer markets as well. So that, there's definitely a reason to get behind it from a purely economical standpoint as well.
Yeah, totally. I think, with different points there, I mean, we've seen, a sustainable approach. It's often a lot about resource efficiency. And so that can save us money. So switching, if I'm here today and I'm not paying for any energy as my solar panels are producing energy for us in our office. So there's a shift there to rethink how we use resources, whether the stuff we make things from, the food we serve in our restaurants. So there's this shift there that can really reduce and impact the bottom line. Good or bad, depending on how you approach it. So let's drive things and raise knowledge levels and capacities so we're looking in the right direction there. So I think that's one of the key things. But then secondly, as you said, client demand is changing. I just had the board of the GDS Movement met this morning, and we had 20 cities from around the world on that board and giving us input. And just to hear how cities all around the world are really ramping up their sustainability regenerative programs because they've been forced to by their citizens, by their residents, and by their businesses. Yeah. If we don't keep just the imbalance in tourism almost before it's a problem, then it will become a big problem. If you're in somewhere like Barcelona, where I am, trying to fix things after it's is a real big challenge. Whereas we have this opportunity in the Northeast to guide things right from the start. And we're fortunate that there is space to grow. There is space to grow and double the economy, but it's going to be done right.
And I think that's the incredible opportunity that lies at the North East's feet for every element of the DDP, not just the regenerative tourism work, but for all of the other work that we're doing as well around accessibility and inclusion and product development, etc. We've got a real opportunity to, like you say, do that from the very beginning and make those changes at a point where it's going to be not necessarily easier to implement, but certainly it's going to be a chance for us to implement those in a way that is going to meet less resistance and is going to take less time to undo and unravel like it has done in other destinations, for example. So speaking about that kind of global community then, that are part of GDS movement and the sustainability movement that you've been driving. The GDS Index is a fantastic tool to benchmark regions and cities and countries around the world in terms of their regenerative approach and their sustainability approach. And we are now piloting in the region, taking a county region through the index for the first time, which is very exciting. Could you explain a little bit more about the index and how it works and what it benchmarks against?
It's interesting to kind of go back in time, 2010, and I was working with Copenhagen and also with Gothenburg on their sustainable tourism strategies. And this was the first time that these guys had created strategies for sustainable tourism. And they were very successful. And we decided to share that knowledge. And so we invited other cities from the Nordics to come to a meeting and kind of went through a process a bit like what we did with the Northeast. And at one point in this process, we had this vision, we need to be a sustainable Scandinavian region for tourism. And someone said, how do we know when we're there? I thought it was like, yeah, great question. What is there? What is sustainable? What is regenerative in terms of, a position, a place? How do I know when I get there? So we started a project to create a scorecard, we called it then, to kind of tick off what was good and what was not good. And we saw that there was a way by creating criteria and judging your performance against it, we started to see that what it actually did was give you a checklist of the stuff that you need to do for the future as one thing. The second thing, it gave you points that you could then discuss with your other peers in other cities. And so we launched this in 2016 as a global initiative after a few years working in Nordics. And now, what are we on now? 8th, 9th year globally. And it's transformed. It's changed cities such as Glasgow, Belfast, Washington, Sydney, Melbourne, all around the world. It's really amazing. So what does it do? Today we divide up this big task into 4 categories. What do we need to do? What does a city need to do environmentally or socially to create kind of basically the infrastructure for sustainable tourism or sustainable visitor economy? Okay, so that could be anything from, having a climate strategy, making sure tourism is in the climate strategy, having a circularity plan, making sure tourism is included in that circularity, recycling, and waste management plan, biodiversity, social inclusion, listening to residents and making sure they're involved in development plans. So a number of things that the city should be leading with the support of destination management organizations and the industry and business. The third area is around the supply chain. So this is all the businesses. So we always look at things in 2 ways. We look at our performance level. So what percentage of hotels in a destination are certified? And 2, what's the strategy to increase certification of hotels? So we have those kind of 2 quantitative, qualitative approach or performance and process, you could also say, and looking at issues. So we look at restaurants, hotels, all of those areas, and airports, amusements and activities. And then lastly, we look at the DMOs, the Destination Management Organization, and what they're doing to create a strategy, how they create the strategy and how they implement the strategy. So today it's 77 criteria, as I said, quantitative, qualitative, that we use. And so each year a city goes, or in the future, a region goes through this assessment and has to put in a series of data. So you have to answer the questions. Do you have a climate strategy for the visitor economy? Yes or no? But then we say the next question, please, can you upload that strategy? So you upload the strategy, and then all of your assessment is evaluated by an assessor who basically says, that's right, that's not quite right yet. Have you thought about doing it? So there's a bit of a coaching goes on between the assessor and the person filling it out. Lots of people are involved in this process from the destination side to get all the data. And so we're giving lots of input, lots of feedback into the process. And then a few months later, when all the data's been verified, checked, and analysed, the cities kind of get a report and say, well, this is great. You've got a score of 76 this year, 76%. This is what you're doing good. This is what you're not doing good. And this is where you should focus. So we give really kind of very specific guidance. But one of the magics of this process is when we give you the guidance, we say you need a better strategy for engaging residents. We would say, have a look at how Barcelona does it. Have a look at how Ljubljana's doing it. And we can even connect you to the person doing it. So we start this process of really sharing knowledge and managing the collective intelligence of the group, or the movement, as we call it. So we're really trying to create this movement of ideas amongst everyone.
And I think, it's like you mentioned just before there, it kind of provides that useful amount of case studies and kind of regions to aspire to and cities to aspire to as well. There's been some fantastic case studies, particularly, we point to Belfast, for example, as being fantastic in that space. And I know that's something that, we as the North East really kind of strive towards. We want to emulate that journey almost. But at the same time, it's important that journey fits for North East England. And, that's what the framework is going to help us do as well. So it's a really great opportunity for us to go on that journey and find out what it means for the region and how we can improve things for the region to kind of be part of that global ranking, as it were.
I love that. And Belfast's a great example. So Jerry and Rachel who started this initiative in 2000, just after COVID. They said, we've got some time. We're interested in creating a sustainability plan, but we've done nothing. So they did the index and they came last but one. Yeah. So I always joke, they always say they did the index without, they did the exam without revising. So then we worked with them to come up with a kind of short, medium and longer term action plan that they started to implement. They started to train, they started to engage, they started to innovate and communicate. Now, they're up there in the top 10. In 3 years. It's really mind-blowing what they've done in such a short amount of time by getting a common vision, a sense of shared purpose and collective action. And that's, I'm definite will happen with the North East of England.
And that's what's so fantastic, isn't it? It's that shared ambition, that collaborative approach, which the North East is now fully embracing with devolution, with the new mayor and with the DDP as well. That was the whole point of the Destination Development Partnership, was to kind of create this kind of critical mass of people to get behind initiatives like this. We're coming towards the end of our time for this episode. I'm kind of coming on to a couple of my last questions for you here, Guy. What do we need to do as an industry to spread the word about this work and ensure that the story of North East England is being told not just here at Region, it's being told nationally, but most importantly around the world to those visitors that we really do want to attract to our wonderful place?
So we have a goal. We've got to attract visitors, right? And we want to attract the right type of visitor. The right type of visitor is the person that reads this. So we need to get this work out there. So we need to be sharing it, talking about it, posting it on social, engaging in conversation. I'm sure that everything we put in there is right. This is version 1. So we need to have discussion around this. We need people to challenge it and say, yeah, that's great, but how the hell are you going to do that? So we need to create these discussions. We need to get involved in international discussions. We've got to get the North East in debates around the world, so we're learning from others and they're learning from us. We need to now kind of localize this. So there's some work now to take the kind of ideas of principles and adapt them to what will work for museums, what will work for hotels, what will work for events companies, what will work for activity providers, what will work for some of the other attractions across the Northeast. So I just got a message from some of the people working in the park service in the Northeast who are going to now take us into the park strategy. That's the kind of stuff that we need to do. We need to be pushing people and just saying, how are you using it? Where is this integrated? So if any of your listeners are involved in boards or heads of businesses, like, read this, take the kind of concepts and just say, what does this mean for me? Organize a discussion with your staff or your board and just say, decarbonize, foster thriving local businesses, invest in people. What are we doing about this? Use this. The framework is a great base for strategy development. So use this as a base of strategy development. And let's just share it, discuss it, and communicate it. So that's just a few ideas.
And to finish, what are your hopes for the future of tourism, and particularly regenerative tourism? You've worked in this space now for a number of years. You've worked in destinations all around the world. So I feel like there's no one better placed really to kind of look forward and identify what those key changes are that need to be made within the tourism sector for visitors, for organisations, for businesses. So what are your hopes for the future?
So one of my team was just at the Skift conference in New York, and she came back and she said, I don't know if I heard the word sustainable or regenerative mentioned in the whole of the conference. Everything was about how do we make more money? How do we drive tourism? What's growth? And you got Booking and Airbnb competing like little boys in a playground about how big and how fast they're growing. So my hope is we change that system. How do we really get this into the conversations of the big corporates and the small guys? We've got to tackle this at all different levels. So my hopes is that we eventually change the big monoliths of the big corporates to rethink their models. And we help support the small family-run businesses to innovate and create even more authentic, special tourism businesses that give back to the community. Because I don't know about you, but those kind of businesses, the ones that I want to visit, those are the ones that give you that unique, special experience. And that's the kind of holiday I want when I go somewhere, or when I take an event to a city and all my delegates. I want that different type of welcome. And that I passionately believe in could be delivered by business and destinations who take a regenerative approach to tourism and the visitor economy.
Fantastic. Guy Bigwood, Chief Executive and Chief Changemaker at Global Destination Sustainability Movement. There we go, got it out eventually. Thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
And as always, there are loads of ways in which you can get support and help to develop your business through Destination Northeast England. And you can really start on your regenerative journey right now. So we are offering fully funded year-long memberships of Green Tourism, one of the leading globally recognised sustainability accreditation memberships available. If you submit for accreditation before the start of the next tax year, so April 2025, we will also extend that free membership for another year. There's different levels of accreditation, bronze, silver and gold, and it's a fantastic way to demonstrate to your customers that you are a business that really cares about sustainability, about the environment, about our place in the world, and of course our people too. There's our Everybody Welcome programme, which is all about providing an inclusive and accessible welcome to every single visitor. We're revamping that and relaunching it very shortly with an event for Purple Tuesday in November. You can find out more information on that again at our website, and you can sign up for our newsletter there as well to get all of the latest insights, opportunities and info about Destination Northeast England as we work to double the value of the visitor economy over the next 10 years. So head to destinationnortheastengland.co.uk for all of that. We will see you with more episodes very, very soon. If you've enjoyed this one, please do hit like and subscribe, share with all of your pals, and even drop us a review if you'd like to. We'd really, really appreciate it. But from me and from Guy, thank you for joining us for this episode, and we'll see you next time. Destination Northeast England is a partnership between Newcastle Gateshead Initiative, Visit County Durham and Visit Northumberland, funded by UK Government.